For the accountants in the room, I've got some really nice charts that'll bring you back to when we studied and we were going through our textbooks, some great reminders of those happy times in our lives. For everybody else, I'll try and make this as accessible as possible. So numbers, we've talked a lot about the theory about rebates. We're really I think everybody's in agreement. They're useful. They drive benefit. They drive that mutual drive for two parties to work together. We've talked about SPAs as well, and all of the other different types of rebate. But what's really important, when we dig a bit deeper, it's the numbers. Are we actually driving the right behaviors? Are we actually making a profit? And when I talk about rebate strategy, what I talk about are three key pillars. The first one is about being very deliberate and very smart with these incentive schemes. That can range from, should you have an annual incentive or should it be quarterly? The second pillar I talk about is know the numbers. So often, when I speak to people about rebates, what they say to me is, I'm not quite sure what they're doing to our business, whether that's a manufacturer or a distributor. If you don't know what they're doing to your business, how are you improving them? Should you actually be offering them or negotiating them? And then thirdly, the final pillar, make sure you can actually manage them, which is a big part of what we're here at this conference for. And when I talk about managing them, I always use the analogy, if you mow your lawn, you don't use a pair of scissors, you use a lawnmower. Because it's efficient and it does a good job. When it comes to rebates, when rebates are important for you, again, you use the right tool. And so, without any further ado, we'll get into some numbers. So let's take this scenario here, where what we've got, and hopefully everybody can see this, is a very simple scenario where I've tried to keep the maths really, really simple. We've got a list price of 1,000. We don't have any rebate. We're giving the customer, or we're marking up the cost by 25%. So we're actually making a margin of 20. I'm not even going to get into margins versus markups. Accountants love that. I still find it confusing. And we're making 125 profit. So everybody's great. And this is really looking at this through a distributor lens. And then we've got an amazing procurement team. And our procurement team, as part of their annual negotiation, have come along and they have secured a better deal. So everybody's happy. They've got this new deal. And instead of getting a 50% discount, we now get a 55% discount. But look at the bottom number. We were making 125. We're now making 113. Why? Because we work on a cost-plus basis. And what's actually happened is our sales team, and I'm glad there are no salespeople in here, or I don't believe there are, have given it away. And this happens so often because they don't know. We give them one piece of information generally. We give them a cost. They've just got a different cost, a lower one. A lower cost with a markup means a lower profit. So all of that benefit has been lost out of the supply chain. The manufacturer's making less money, the distributor's making less money. We could use a rebate here. What happens if we take that benefit that we've negotiated, and we say, we'll have that as a rebate? What we've done is we've locked in the benefit now. The sales team shouldn't be impacted because actually this was not about getting, the cost was credible in the first place. We've just got an extra buying benefit. So we're now retaining this. So sales remain competitive. We become more profitable as a business. So this is an example of a fixed rebate. It's really important, though, with these rebates, that they don't become abusive. You don't want to ever get to a position where the sales team can't trade because you've got just an artificial cost in the system. That cost still needs to be credible. But it's a really simple example of using a rebate instead of a discount to lock in profit. So that's kind of our first scenario. This one's a little bit more complicated. This is all about offering a rebate. And this is the one for the accountants. So we have a very simple scenario. We have overheads of 1 million. We have a contribution per unit of 5, so we're making 33.3%. We don't currently offer rebates, and we want to grow. And this is where the slides get really interesting. We've got a chart, a break-even illustration. First line we put in, and I love the animation, are overheads. Come with another line, which is our contribution. And there's even more lines to come. Our gross profit percentage. That's the important one. And then we think, well, we want to be a 10% return business. That's where we want to be. We want a 10% operating profit. So when we look at this chart, we go all the way over to the left, we look for the 10, we go over until it intersects the curved line, the gross profit. We come down, had roughly about 280,000 units. Once we are selling a 280,000 units, thereafterwards, we're making our 10% return on sale goal. But if we don't do anything, we actually keep making more and more and more profit. But we want growth, and we know growth generally comes at a cost to margin. So what do? We start doing a bit of maths. So all in agreement, profit equals revenue less costs. If we want 10%, it's actually 10% times our revenue equals our revenue less our costs. Therefore, 0.1 R equals R minus C. I did tell you this was going to be maths. This is going to bring algebra back for everybody. And hopefully not too many nightmares. And as you'll recall, you kind of cross things out and you keep going down. So we're now at a position where we took an R off of either side. So at minus 0.9 R equals minus C. We also know R, because our sales price was 15, our revenue is 15 times the quantity, so 15Q. We know our costs are 1 million, and the cost is 10 per unit, so 10Q. So we can actually now replace some of the numbers out. We can say 0.9 times 15Q equals 1 million plus 10Q. This is how we get to that quantity number. We keep consolidating down, and ultimately, we will get to a magic number. Where we're going to get to is Q is 285,714. At that point, the next product we sell, our operating profit starts to climb from 10%, keeps going up. So we can use that money because our target was to stay at 10. Yes, plus anything above that is great. But how do we use that information? We can now say, well, our sales number, that needs to be 4,285,710. Great. Now what we can do is we can say, what kind of rebates do we want to use to go north of that number? Because we know now, after that number, we don't need to make that 33.3% contribution anymore. We only need to make 10 to hold our profit and incentivize that growth. So there's two key kind of rebates we could use here. We could offer a non-retrospective rebate. So what we work out as a business is, and we break up our sales maybe by customer. They all have an individual target which collectively comes to our goal, probably with a degree of safety. But we say actually when they hit that number, and we're wanting to hold a 10%, we can actually offer them a 26% rebate. 26%. Wow. That is a big, big kind of incentive. But most distributors are not keen on the non-retrospective. What they want is actually to earn something right from the beginning. So we have the other side, the more common type of rebate. In this scenario, we've created a couple of different bands, and this is when you create those tiers. So the reward keeps getting bigger. You keep giving back to your customers the benefit they're delivering you, but you're holding your margins. So this is a real example of a win-win scenario, and it's about doing the maths. If you do that, your rebate strategy is going to be more profitable for you and your customer. And I would ask anybody, do we do this? Probably not enough. I mean, this is a really simplified approach, but this kind of math should be somewhere in your process. I'll have to put a nice picture on this one for me. Not all numbers now. So in this scenario, this is a different rebate again. This is when we're trying to influence margin rather than growth. So this is mix. What we've got here is two scenarios where we're currently at, an 80-20 mix between two product ranges. As always, where we sell the most products is where we probably make the least money. Unfortunately, that seems to be a kind of a fact of life in business. What if we change that 80-20 to 70-30? What does that mean to us? It means we go from 18% to 19.5%. In real simple numbers, that's your pot. That's what you could give away to incentivize that mix change. You probably would want to give all of it away. So in this scenario, I've said, well, I want to give 80% of it away. If I give it 80% of that benefit away, my margin is 18.3%. I'm making more money, and actually I'm not charging the customers anymore. I'm just incentivizing. What do I offer to get that behavior? What's my budget for my rebate? I could do this 3 different ways. I could make everything, when they achieve that, 1.2% cheaper. So the low margin range for that customer can get even cheaper for them, yet I can make more money. So if that's their driver, if really what they're focused on is making the kind of the commodity range cheaper to them, because they're probably not making a lot of money either, that is a great way to go. Or you could just reward them on the commodity range. You could say, hey, I know you want this cheaper. You buy in this mix for us, we'll make it 1.71% cheaper for you. That's a big difference when margins are tight. Or you could just reward them on the premium range, the one where you make more profit. You can offer them 4%. That's, again, it's doing the maths, knowing what you want to achieve, what you can afford to pay out, and what your benefit is going to be. You absolutely must do these things as part of a good rebate strategy. Same scenario now, but slightly different. We're going to try and keep the 70-30, or get to the 70-30, but we're going to acknowledge that actually the demand is not going to move from the premium range. Oh, sorry, from the base range. So where we're doing 8 million in product range A, that's going to hold at 8, because the demand is there. So we're actually just now trying to promote maybe add-on products. So we're not actually shifting mix, we're just growing kind of our add-ons. In this scenario, if you wanted to do it this way, you've got more to offer. In simplistic terms, you've still got 1.5% bottom line, but it's 1.5% of a bigger number. In this scenario, the economy low margin range, you can now offer 3% if they get you to those numbers. 3% on a product that you were only making 15 on to start with. And actually, as a business, if it's about pound notes as opposed to percentages, this might be the way you want to go. You will see it does drop your margin to 16.5. Some businesses, what they care about is profit and cash in the bank. So it really depends, again, on what are your objectives as a business. Is it dollar profit or is it percentage? And again, align your incentives based on those expectations. The next one, and so this is a nod to the spa world. And for a lot of people, spas, they can be quite polarizing. I've just sat in a session where the view was manufacturers love them, distributors not so much. To me, there's a good spa and a bad spa, just like rebates. A good spa works for both sides. It enables the distributor to stay competitive, win business they wouldn't otherwise achieve. Potentially, they need to win that business to secure other sales. For a manufacturer, the benefits are pretty obvious. It's about gaining market share, again, making sure their product is utilized. Mark McCready did a great piece as well, talking about why spas are really, really important. And I loved his piece when he gave us an analogy on buying whiskey. It was very topical coming from an Irishman. So in this scenario, we're selling one widget. And everything's great. We're making 25%. But we know what's going to happen next. Somebody's going to come along, and they're going to want to buy a lot of widgets. So they come along, and they buy a lot of widgets, and they negotiate a really good discount for the volume. We're not making any money. Generally, we would turn this business away. We would say, nope, I can't do this. This is not profitable for me as a distributor. So what happens, and I see this a lot, is actually the business is declined. That customer will go elsewhere to a more joined-up supply chain where the distributor does know they can get a spa. They've got a good relationship with the manufacturer, and they're aligned. So let's make ourselves competitive. Put a spa in. So in this scenario, and spas can get complicated, and this is where sometimes distributors and even manufacturers don't like them. Sometimes you get a spa, and then it affects your rebate earnings. So it's this kind of complexity. But in this scenario, what we're doing is the manufacturer is saying, I acknowledge you're fulfilling a big order here, and I want that order. I want this product in that building site. I want this product at that catering event. Whatever it is, for them, getting their product where it needs to be is so important. It might just be that they're thinking, we're a manufacturer, we're really good at building things and making things. Distribution isn't our world. So they may have even negotiated directly with the customer, but then they need a distribution partner. So in this scenario, what it means is everybody's happy. You've got a big order, and generally with big orders, other things come along. So that's spas. Really just trying to illustrate them. Now this one, I'm going to skip through because we've cut the time down slightly. This was actually an example of a rebate earning scenario. I was going to give everybody a contract, one of the ones we love, where we make it super complicated and say, how much rebate have we earned? And everybody sits there scratching their head. Instead, I'm moving on to, again, why are the numbers important? The numbers are important because I took this directly from a pricing conference. When we look at this, So pricing people love waterfalls. I didn't even know what one was, even when I was an accountant. But I understand now they're so visual in showing you, I wouldn't say where you're giving money away, because you're not giving it away, but where you are offering incentives and discounts to your customer and ultimately how much money you're making. So I think everybody would agree there's a lot of talk about pricing. They have their own body that talks about pricing. There's lots of books written on pricing. There's lots of pricing models. They talk about elasticity. They talk about so many things. Look at this waterfall. It's the 7%, right at the beginning. There's so much attention on that piece. But look what happens afterwards. As some people might say, look what happens when the salespeople get involved. All the marketing teams as well. But this was the pricing community's slide. This is what they were actually talking about. I think we agree, therefore, it's so important we're calculating these numbers. We know what we're doing. Because we actually do calculate the 7%, we really spend a lot of time on that number. Let's make sure we're doing the maths on the other bit. Because ultimately, what we really, really want to know, and it's kind of the holy grail of any accounting when it comes to working with rebates, we want to know the 30% at the end. That's the real important number to us. And bit by bit, we're getting there. We know it's complicated. We know we have data challenges. But when you get to that 30% and you know that, suddenly you become a very enlightened business. You're doing the maths that drive the 30. As Jeff and I talked about yesterday, you're doing the analysis after you've set those things to see what they're doing. Are they making the car go around the track faster or slower? The maths is important because that is what tells you if you should keep doing it or if you should stop doing it. And so, with that in mind, what we're going to look now is at a view from a distributor who's not enlightened. And this is my own personal story, working in construction materials. So I started at Grafton, big competitor with Travis Perkins, Nick over there. They made all the profit. They were the big player. You did the maths. We didn't. No, we got there in the end. But I joined, and I still remember our CEO was very focused on margin, like every CEO is. I was saying that. Normally it's sales, isn't it? And it's the finance guy that worries about margin. But we had a scenario, and I've really simplified this down, where we had two margins. We had a granular margin, which we called our system margin. That's what our ERP was telling us we were making. And then we had our P&L margin, which appeared at the end of the month, when we put all the rebates in and everything. And what happened was, every month, our system margin said, you're doing everything great. And then the accountants would come along at the end of the month, we'd put the other bits in, and they'd be like, oh, it's not going so well. So everybody would blame us and tell us we're not giving them all of the rebate. But as a business, we were telling the business, focus on margin. If I work in sales and you tell me to focus on margin, and I make 20% on bricks and blocks and 10% on insulation, I'm going to sell more bricks and blocks. I'm doing the right thing. Because that's the information you've given me. So what happens is, I was at 50-50 sales, making 15%. I've changed it to 60-40. I'm now making 16%. Brilliant. I've done exactly what the CEO asked me to do. In the bottom scenario, I could go the other way. And I'd drop my margin. Definitely don't want to do that. And I can guarantee if you did do that, you get a phone call from the CEO saying, what on earth are you doing? But then we know that's the discount bit. That's that first bit of the waterfall. That's all that's telling us. The rest comes afterwards. And as a distributor, we have it on both sides. We've got what we're earning from our supply chain, and we've got what we're paying out. And then we've got the SPAs as well, marketing incentives, all of these things influencing our profit. This went on for 5 years. For 5 years, our margin kept getting better here. For 5 years, our margin bottom line, when the accountants produced the numbers, was going down. Just slowly, but we were not having great years. And nobody could work out why. Then we had the enlightened moment. We worked out what the rebates were doing to our business. There was hardly any rebate behind bricks and blocks because it's kind of like a commodity traded product. These numbers are actually dumbed down. Bricks and blocks was about 2%. Insulation, in some cases, was like 70%. The net margin we were making, we got it the wrong way round. We were driving the mix of our business in the wrong direction, and we didn't know. The sales teams were doing exactly what they were told to do with the information we had given them. What happened in 1 year when we realized this? It was very difficult to undo what we'd done. It was very difficult to put all of the rebates in the ERP. We couldn't do that. So we had to give them a simple message. We said, here's 20 different product ranges. Be credible when you sell these ones, and be competitive when you sell these, because we now knew our net margins. A really simple message to them. That year, the needle moved in the right direction. Our bottom line percentage profit, this is a business that at one point was trading at 7%, and we got it down to 3.5%. In 1 year, we got it back up to 5%, and the business was sold. The power of the data, knowing what's happening, knowing how the rebates are influencing your business, especially in a distributor, cannot be understated. It's so important to know because distributors especially, we have lots of different rebate rates. And we don't want to tell the sales team about them either because we're worried they'll be traded away. And so it's a bit of a cat and mouse scenario. We want you to make more profit, but we're not going to tell you all of the information to do it. So you've got to think about what messages are you actually giving to your sales team for them to make smart, engaged, and profitable decisions. What we did in this scenario, so as an example, dry lining or drywall, there was 2 ranges. One we made hardly any money on, one we made great money on. Our supplier, it was exactly the same for them. And 24% of our buying was in the premium range. And so we went to them and said, hey, what would you give us if we could increase this? And they offered us a rebate. We then aligned that to our sales team. We said to our sales team, if you sell the premium range, that'll form part of your bonus plan. If you sell the other stuff, it won't. Because actually, you don't sell the other stuff. The customer just comes and buys it. We moved from 24% to 31%. Our target was 28%. It was a win-win for us, the manufacturer, and actually the customer. They were tradespeople. Whatever they purchased, they just charged it to their end consumer. What it actually meant was if you had a bathroom done, you actually now had a board that could deal with moisture and didn't go moldy, as opposed to the cheap, nasty one that they would put in your house. So everybody technically was a winner. But you can see how easy it would be if you didn't have all of that information to be able to drive those smarter decisions. So that, for me, is very much why the maths are important. Respect the accountants. We are approachable. We do love our numbers, but I just can't emphasize enough. If you're running rebates and you're dealing with them and you're not sure what they're doing to your business, have a look at these maths. Work it out and then optimize. And that way we will make sure that rebates have a good reputation for driving the right things as opposed to being this thing that we provide just because the customer asked for it. Thank you.